It was crazy yesterday. I went by the Hilton Meadowvale, and there was a lineup around the building at 8:30 p.m. So
Well, I was watching the news before heading out, and of course, I went to each of the election night parties of all the winning candidates, and one of them, who was a personal friend, we can talk about that,
yeah,
who didn't was not successful. But I had been watching the returns, and I saw in Vaughan it was that disputed riding where Deb Schultz. I think ultimately she's now losing, but they
yeah.
had a 3 hour wait. People in line at 9 and 9:30 that had a 3 hour wait to vote at 9:30, and they
That's
said we will honor your right to vote. You're already in the lineup, but it took 3 hours to process them. But I
crazy.
don't think anywhere else in Mississauga. I think we got people through. They all
Yeah.
closed on time. They all closed on time, and the counting came in relatively quickly. I watched it until they started declaring the winners. I think Omar was declared first. So we made my way up there and to congratulate him, and got interviewed by Angie Seth, who was stationed there on CTV. And I think, where did
Omar,
I go? And then went to Peter Fonseca because he was next. Then up to the new Malton candidate, Ickwinder, and then over to, it was getting late at this point. It was already midnight when I got to Ikra Khalid. And then the choice was to go down to congratulate Mike Rass, because of course that's Karen's husband,
yeah.
on a great campaign, because he did. He had a great clean campaign. And then as I was approaching his election night party, I got a text saying, he's at Sven's office congratulating Sven. What a world class, what a classy guy. He went in with the family, shook his hand, and they, and conceded and said great campaign to each other. I thought that I just had so much, so much respect for people who do that. It's the right thing to do. So we booted it over to Sven. So the only one I didn't get to was Streetsville. I texted her, I called her, so made it to all of them. But I gotta say, it was past 1 a.m. by the time I got there.
I was gonna ask you what time you
It's
got
a
in.
long day. It's been a long day. The morning started as it usually does. And then tonight we have a planning and development committee meeting. So it's going to be a long night too. I have, I have,
You got me for 30 minutes, all right? So
that's okay. Well, you got it. So it was an interesting night. Yeah, they're still counting in a few places, I understand. So certainly, which riding? Is that York Simcoe, Deb Schultz? But one of those York Vaughan ridings that they're counting. I guess Fort York Spadina is a bit in dispute, but he won.
yeah.
I heard they got a lot of their identified vote out early in the advance polls. So,
I noticed you wear a lot of red. Is that the
well, not always, but
okay?
it just seemed like the right thing to do this
All right.
morning. In fairness,
Okay. Awesome. Okay, we'll get to the
and there
questions
were a
here.
couple of wins out west. Calgary, a
Yeah.
councillor was elected, George Tahal, and I know the South Asian community has been very excited about that. So that's
Nice.
good news. And then I think it was Vancouver, Granville was the other one I was watching, because that was Jody Wilson-Raybould's seat. And that went back and forth between the Liberals and the NDP there for a little while. And I think the Liberal prevailed. So congratulations to him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have, and the cool thing is, so I have this privilege to talk to you every week,
Yes,
right?
you do. Yes.
And it is a privilege, right?
Thank
Because
you.
I talk to restaurants. I talk to people, and I always ask them, like, "What do you want me to ask the mayor?"
Is that
Right?
right?
And,
Is that
and
right?
yeah. So, and today I was at my favorite Japanese restaurant in
Oh,
Mississauga
oh,
for
look
lunch.
at you.
Yeah, I asked him, I go, I have the mayor in a couple hours. What is there anything you want me to ask her? And he said, yes. He said, what happens if a customer disputes the vaccine passport, right? Because they're all ready to go,
Right,
right?
right. So it is not the customers to dispute, because it is the law that they must present it if they
Yeah,
would like indoor dining. If
yeah,
they would like to sit outside on the patio, that's fine. They don't have to. But the law is, if you want to dine indoors, you must present either your credentials that you've been vaccinated, or when it's ready, that QR code on October 22nd. So if there's pushback from that individual, they have to decline them for indoor
yeah.
dining and offer them the outdoor. And if the customer is providing, it becomes adversarial, they should call 311. 311. Not that
311.
other number. Not that other number. Don't even mention it.
Okay.
311.
311 people, call 311.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's to bylaw and enforcement, and they will come. But hopefully people will understand that, it is not the restaurateurs that was imposing these rules on you. This is the provincial government that have moved forward with vaccine certification, which, by the way, I do agree with. And so they'll have to present it if they want. And non-essential services like indoor dining, like going into the gym, I have to present it when I go into F45, my F45 class in Port Credit. Go Drew, he's been enforcing that and temperature controls for some time. And of course, if you want to go to any concert venue, live music, a sporting venue, if you want to go see the Blue Jays or the basketball team, Raptors, or even a hockey game, you will have to show proof of vaccination. And that's nothing to dispute there. That's the law. So if you are opposed to vaccinations, then you won't be eligible. You won't be able to go.
You know that you and I, obviously, and 80% or 85% of the people will follow the rules, but it's a 15% that, protested at the hospitals and stuff like that, that will cause a stink.
Well,
right?
I think they will initially, and then they'll learn that if they want to attend these non-essential activities and venues, then they'll have to. They'll have to be vaccinated, or they'll just have to stop trying to, cause problems for these vendors.
Okay. And city facilities and buildings?
Same.
Same thing. All right.
Same. And maybe this is the opportunity to say, be kind. We're going to have a lot of young people serving as ambassadors that will be checking the credentials. And, I don't want to see people getting in dispute with other young people who are just doing their job because they've been told to check vaccination certificates. So be kind. This isn't their doing. They have a job to do. The dispute would be with the provincial government who imposed the certification, but be reminded that I support it, as do, as you said, 80 to 85% of people, including all the decision makers at every level of government. So, be kind to others, because this is the policy going forward. I know people didn't like wearing seatbelts in the beginning either. They don't like not being able to smoke by buildings, but those are the rules too. They don't like having their dog on a leash either, but those are the rules. And you will be fined for all those other things, and you won't be admitted. You won't be given entrance to non-essential activities and venues if you don't present your vaccine certificate. That's how it is going forward.
Okay. And then, he did have another question too. He says, is this forever, or is it going to be for like a year? I couldn't answer that either. Like the vaccine, will it be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year? What do you think?
So the answer to that is we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet. Let's see how things go. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and holding my breath that these numbers stay stable and they won't warrant further restrictions, that we won't go into the kind of lockdowns we saw last Christmas. Dr. Lowe said if we could keep it stable through September or October going into November, we may have, averted the worst of it. So that's what I'm hoping. And I see the numbers declining again. They spiked a little bit for a few weeks, but they're coming back down. And, we had under 600 cases today, just over 500. And, we had, I think, 32 cases in Mississauga. So it's stable. The situation in the hospitals is stable as well. I remember you and I have many of these conversations, and all I did for months and months was read the statistics. What are the case counts? How many COVID hospitalizations are? How many in the ICU? And done so that people had an acute awareness of how severe the situation was and how they needed to follow the public health protocols and guidelines. But now they're following them, and they understand that to avert more restrictive measures, I won't use the L word because nobody wants that, including me, then this is what we have to do for the foreseeable future. Let's call it that, for the foreseeable future till we get this under control.
True. So let's go back to the election last night. Liberals won, minority. What do you want from the Liberals for Mississauga?
Yeah, well, I want a lot. I have a huge wish list, and they all know that, and they've been briefed on it, the candidates and the leaders. But I think it sent a message that people think that minority governments work, and that it forces them to collaborate and come together on policy initiatives. And, I think the Prime Minister said in his acceptance speech, I stayed up that late last night, that it gave them a mandate on a progressive platform going forward. And he'll be working closely with the other opposition parties to pursue a progressive agenda, a progressive agenda. So you know that my asks of the federal parties were to continue to invest in cities, to make cities strong, because of course our budgets aren't designed to build infrastructure and transit. We rely on other levels of government for grants and loans, and so I'm looking for a government that will continue to invest in transit, that will keep investing in infrastructure, who are acutely aware that we want all-day two-way go on the Milton line, that we need the downtown loop, that we need to rebuild our transit terminal in the downtown, that we have infrastructure needs and we need to continue to repair our roads, that we have an acute housing crisis here, that there is no affordability when it comes to housing, and that we need to they need to work with us to design programs that incentivize the right kind of building and allow us to do things like inclusionary zoning and offer land at lower than market rates so that housing that's affordable can be built. So there are a lot of things that can be done. Incentivize us to build as well. And give us the tools and the mechanisms we need to do it. So the housing affordability, one of the key issues for every mayor across this country. Infrastructure, always important. Transit, any large municipality has a transit issue. And you and I both know that I'm operating at 40 to 50% ridership. Tomorrow at our at our general committee meeting, in fact, we're going to have strategies presented to us on how we address some of those issues on the ridership issue, and and how we address transit in the future going forward. So at least the staff have thought this through and are going to be presenting a strategy on how do we do that. But any municipality with a large transit operation, large transit system, and a large fleet are suffering huge losses, and they're contributing to our operational deficit. So the other ask, of course, is to continue to give us that restart money, because we can't run deficits. We only collect what we're going to spend, and we don't run deficits. And so, if in the absence of a balanced budget, which we won't have this year because of largely transit, they need to continue to provide us with that stopgap measure to, I bleed about 7 million a month on transit losses. And so they need to assist us, because we're still running at 40 to 50% capacity ridership on my way. So those are the key issues. So I need safe restart. I need all the infrastructure, transit, affordable housing. Those are and we should also talk about climate change. We have a $50 million plan over the next 10 years to help address, adapt, mitigate the pressures of climate change. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we declared a climate crisis and a climate emergency ahead of all the GTHA other municipalities, and we have an action plan. And so we're very serious about that. So we wanted a government who took climate change seriously, that will work with us to implement some of the measures. So those were the things I was looking for from the candidates and the leaders as they put their platforms forward. And you didn't hear me advocating for a party. What you heard me advocating for was any party, any candidate that would pledge to continue to invest in cities and take our issues seriously, and take the issues of transit and housing affordability and climate change seriously, and work with us as a collaborative partner to help address those issues.
That's a lot. Okay.
It's only Tuesday.
So, the headline was new rec center, new $51 million rec center, 65,000 square foot rec center opens up in Mississauga. It blew up all over Google and stuff like that. Our article got read about 60,000 times. Tell us about that. It's pretty exciting.
Yes, so I haven't had the opportunity to fully tour it yet. It's a soft opening. We're going to have a grand opening. I think Thanksgiving weekend is the grand opening. There's a lot going on the Thanksgiving weekend. The food drive. We've rescheduled the Paint the Town Red Canada Day parade to Thanksgiving. There's so much going on that weekend. So I'll be here and touring the Churchill Meadows new community center, which is state of the art and beautiful. And if you've been on the 407 or driven up Ninth Line, then you've seen it. It's just stunning and huge, and it can be subdivided, and it'll meet the needs of that community. There's obviously a shortage in the northwest of the city with respect to community centers, and there was a pool there as well. Let's not forget that won't open this year, perhaps next year, because it's already, of course, weather is changing. So yeah, it's very exciting news. Our first, well, since the Meadowvale was rebuilt, right? And then before that, Malton was rebuilt, and River Grove would probably be the newest, aside from that. Well, Meadowvale's the newest.
Yeah.
Meadowvale's the newest. And then, and we will be rebuilding South Common as well. We've received some funding for that.
Nice. I was reading that the basketball courts are going to turn into ice rinks in the wintertime.
See? So yeah, staff have thought about that and implemented the, whatever multi-functional purposes for all of the, all of the courts and the gymnasiums, etc. Can be multi-purpose.
Nice. Like talking about other developments within the city, outside of the library, is there any other major developments that you could talk about that stick out?
So the library renovation, of course, we've talked about. Yeah. South Common Mall will be renovated, the community center there. You know that we're also renovating the Burnhamthorpe Community Center, right? And adding a pool, which the community wanted. And after we gave them the pool, then there was a group of residents that realized they're going to miss that covered ice rink that is there as well, remember? And we said, look, well, we can reopen the ice rink, just not there. There won't be enough room, but we will certainly look at a neighboring park to reopen that. So the staff are working with the community on looking for a new site for that. So, there's 3 examples. And what else? Yeah, I think there's the 3 examples for now. And, awesome. Eventually in the Cooksville area, we want to work with the redevelopment that will occur to include a community center in some of the new developments, but that's a little bit down the road, but those are our long-term plans.
Nice. South Common, my mom used to teach karate there.
Did she? How exciting.
Wow. So now that this is from one of our writers, now that Port Credit Marina is moving along, is Mississauga going to hit senior levels of government even harder for the $75 million project?
That's a great question. And everybody knows I'm passionate about that marina. I had the opportunity to go to Chicago a couple of years ago, and they have 19 public marinas. And how is it the city of, the size of ours, and we don't have one? We have, of course, a private yacht club, but not a public marina where hobby fishermen or people who just want to go boating can leave their boats. So yes, of course, a big priority. It's an economic generator as well as a tourism attraction. So it's a fabulous idea, and I'm glad council is supportive of it. We did get there has been an announcement recently that they will fund the environmental assessment, the EA, that is required. So that's very good news. So it means it's moving forward incrementally. And yes, and of course, it remains on our pre-budget submissions, our list of asks, wish list, if you will, for other levels of government to help us finance.
Awesome. And here's another one from our writers. You've identified Huron-Ontario LRT City Centre Loop as one of the biggest Mississauga infrastructure projects. How realistic is it that we get this back?
That's a good question. We're very hopeful they'll come to realize that it was necessary. I mean, the downtown was designed around density. And of course, when you build density, you want to have public transit, and public transit along here, Ontario, is great. But as you and I both know, we have 25 towers that are breaking ground within 5 years. And then the Oxford OMERS group that own Square One have their own Square One development plans, which is another 30 towers. So we have 55 towers coming in over 30 years. We need more access to public transit. And we also gave parking considerations to a lot of those condominium owners so that they don't have to provide one spot per unit, because of course there was access to public transit. So we continue to lobby both the provincial and the federal government, and we're hoping it is rescoped, as they call it, back into the project before the 4-year mark, when we are hoping for the completion of the LRT. I mean, there's always a possibility of adding it later, but it would be so much more cost effective to put it in when it's being built.
So I'm assuming the only stop now is Rathburn and Highway 10, correct? Is that the one?
On both ends, so Burnham Thorpe and then Rathburn on the north side, right? Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
on both sides.
cool.
And it's just a bit, so think about if you're at M City, right?
Yeah,
That is a little bit of a walk. That is a little bit of a walk. You know, that's almost closer to Mavis than it is to here, Ontario. So it is a little bit of a walk, right? And don't forget, we have Sheridan College. We have all the employees at City Center. We have the shoppers at the mall. So we have thousand plus all the residents, thousands and thousands of people, and people working in the downtown as well. So you know, it was a big loss. We continue to advocate for it because it was a big loss to us. So it was scoped out of the project, and I think really it was a cost consideration because I think it was much more costly than originally anticipated. And you know, when we were given full funding for the LRT, I had just become mayor. It was April 19th, 2014 when I became mayor, and you know, you can't build the LRT for that amount of money anymore. 1.4 billion. It's, you know, $5 or $6 billion project today. So I can understand why they had to do that, but nonetheless, it is the right thing to do, and I'm very hopeful. And you know, the government is looking at building a highway, you know, in Vaughan and North that we think is unnecessary, and you know, they'll be spending $10 billion to build a highway where there won't be population till 2050. I think the best idea is to take that money if it's available and invest in public transit, right? So whether it's the downtown loop in Mississauga or another LRT in Hamilton or all day two-way on the Milton GO line, you know, we've been advocating for that for many years too. So, you know, our council is opposed to this new highway, that 413 that's being proposed, only because we think that money could be better used elsewhere and invested in public transit.
true. Oh, I do remember you running for mayor in 2014. I interviewed you back then, including all 24 other candidates.
Oh, that's right. There were quite a number of us.
It was, yeah. Your interview was easy and good. The rest were pretty, yeah. So,
Well, I was on council, so I was already a decision
yeah.
maker and already aware of all the issues. And I think that gave me a, you know, considerable advantage that I was already aware of all of our priorities, our vision. I had my own vision based on the vision of the city, and I was, you know, already sitting at the table making decisions and in discussion with council members. So it gave me a large advantage, I think.
Yeah, I had one person actually say that he wants to build a suspension bridge to Manitoulin Island, and he was serious.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So,
Would that
okay.
be done with Mississauga taxpayer dollars?
Oh, it would have been.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was very interesting. Here's another question. Is Pearson Airport doing enough to address the noise complaints from residents in nearby communities, which I'm in one of them, but I'm not.
Right, I know, I hear about it. And so the Rockwood area, of course, and, you know, Markland Woods and frankly, you know, Ward 6 area as well, Dairy Road area, suffer a lot of noise from the airport. And the airport is growing. I mean, you know, this year and last year, certainly passenger travel and pleasure travel has been reduced significantly. So I bet they've actually enjoyed the fact that there's been less travel and less airplane traffic. But the reality is we're a growing city, we're a growing airport, and it's a function of trade. And you know, the world is global today, so people do travel, and that's you know, I think those communities were aware that those runways may interfere with you know, with their neighborhoods prior to moving there. I remember there's some neighborhoods being built where large signs had been erected saying,
Yeah.
be aware, airport noise in this community should you be buying your home here. So, you know, it is a reality in a big city that's adjacent and home to the largest airport in Canada. You know, we do meet regularly, and those residents who are asking the question, there are committees on which they can sit on and voice their concerns with the GTAA, you know, and sometimes they change the direction of the flight patterns, the approach or departure patterns, you know, and it also depends on winds, etc. You know, but they can give that feedback on certain stakeholder committees. So that's an option as well. I know many residents have done that. Chris Fonseca is very active because, of course, her community is impacted. And then the federal member is her husband, and I know that he's very engaged on the issue and works closely with the airport to help mitigate that noise and make the adjustments when necessary, that they don't fly too low, there aren't too many per hour, you know, and etc. If the winds change, alert people, or if there's maintenance being done, let's alert those neighborhoods that the runway will shift and the travel patterns will shift. So it's a significant issue for the residents that live in those areas. You know, I grew up in a community as well that we had the runway was right over, the approach was right over our home, and every once in a while you would look up and conversation would stop until the airplane passed and then pick up again, and that's just how it was.
Yeah.
And I can understand that they suffer from the same disruption.
Cool. Well, the airplane airport's not going anywhere.
And it's growing, and there's more night travel.
Yeah. I'll end with this question. Okay, we had a federal election just yesterday. There's going to be a provincial election, I think June next year. There's also a municipal election coming up
October 22. Yes, I'm acutely aware of that.
Are you going to run for mayor next year?
I am.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
I am. I can announce my re-election plans right here, right now. No, There's too much to accomplish, too much outstanding to oversee. You know, whether it's the LRT, I want to cut that ribbon on completion, oversight of Lakeview and Brightwater, the downtown. There are a few people other than my counselors who are as aware and briefed on the issues that matter to Mississaugans and our vision and for our city. And, you know, I want to be there to see through what I began. So, of course.
Awesome. And those are all my questions.
Thank you. I didn't get who's your favorite child or what's your favorite restaurant.
No, nobody typed that in today.
I guess they weren't watching today. They're all still sleeping. I think they were all tired from the election night coverage.
I hope they're not all sleeping. So, yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.